Hello, today I'm going to show you how to place and carve a class 2 restoration using wax. So here's how we get started with putting wax into a prep. For the proximal box, we want to fill up a little bit more because we want to create a little bit bulbous on the proximal box to create a contact. This is how a prep should look like after it's filled with wax. So my occlusal looks all filled, so now I'm just going to adjust the proximal box so that I could put the prep into the general form. Like you see, there's too much excess on the proximal box and I can't even put it in here, so I'm just gonna bring it down a little bit. But we want to make sure that we not make it too flat that it's gonna wipe out the contact. I'm still leaving a little bit of bulbous right here. And like we know that the contact's supposed to be in the middle third, so I'm gonna leave a little bit of bulbous right there. There are two main steps that we need to follow. The first one is clearing steps and the second step is carving. First, I'm gonna show you the clearing steps. So we mostly clear a restoration with the half hollow back. I'm going to place the half hollow back about 10-degree angle and rest it on the occlusal surface here. When I'm clearing the occlusal surface, I'm just going to take down some excess here. You see how I place the tip of the half hollow back in the middle of the prep? It will help create a central groove. So let's talk about the anatomy of number 30 DO. If we look in at this sheet right here, this is the mesial, this is the distal. So we have a transverse ridge and then a horseshoe here. Comparing the mesial buccal groove to the distal buccal groove, the distal buccal groove is angled a little bit more than the mesial buccal groove. And the important thing is we're building up the distal portion, which is this part right here. So we're going to build the marginal ridge. The distal fossa going to be created between the distal buccal groove of the horseshoe and then from the side of the distal marginal ridge. And then don't forget that number 30 DO has 3 supplemental grooves which connect the tip of the horseshoe. And remember that the horseshoe doesn't need to be extended as far as this picture is only need to be slightly lingual to the central groove. I am using a half hollow back to draw in pit and groove on the occlusal number 30. So here I am drawing in the groove on the mesial side, the mesial buccal groove, distal buccal groove, central groove, and the tip of the horseshoe. So the occlusal of number 30 DO should look like this after we draw in pit and groove. We also use the half hollow back to remove the excess of wax out of each fossa. First, I'm going to extend the tip of the half hollow back only halfway across the prep to the central groove. This instrument will be slightly angled and rest on the enamel surface. Resting the side of the half hollow back on the enamel surface help prevent over clearing. I am using a push and pull stroke to move down the sides of the triangular ridges I will start at the side of the ridges and move down the inclined plane and stop at the bottom of each fossa. Push and pull surface. You see how the wax coming off here. So right here, I'm going to use push, pull, push, and pull. My half hollow back is rests on the enamel and it is angled approximately 10-degree angle. It depends on a big or small fossa that I'm trying to create that I need to adjust the length of my stroke. Like you see here, the central fossa on the lingual side is a little bit bigger compared to the mesial fossa. That's why I need to extend my stroke a little bit longer here. And please remember that during the clearing steps, you can always go back and redraw in your groove and your pit to ensure that your anatomy is not shifting to a different location. To clear the excess off the top of the triangular ridges, I will place the tip of the half hollow back at the central groove and carving only half of the ridge at a time. I will move the instrument back and forth and staying on the top of the ridge. Try not to go down the side of the ridge because right now we only focus on removing the excess on the top of the ridges to bring the height of the ridges down. The horseshoe is an exception. Like I said, that we need to rest the half hollow back on the tooth surface, but since the horseshoe is a little bit longer and extend slightly toward the lingual, we might need to angle the half hollow back a little bit to get to the tip of the horseshoe right here. Because if we only rest on the tooth and going straight down, we're just gonna wipe up the horseshoe and wipe up the curvature of the horseshoe right here. Keep using this stroke until the excess is removed. Next, we're gonna clear the marginal ridge and creating the shape for the marginal ridge. So we want to make sure that the height of the marginal ridge is the same as the height of the adjacent tooth. So I'm using my explorer to see how it's high compared to the mesial of number 31. With the marginal ridge, so first we want to put in where the spillway is. So the spillway is located at least 1 millimeter away from the cable surface and lingual to the contact area. So it is going to be right here. I'm putting it in. Okay. So I will work on the lingual first because it's a short distance from the spillway to the cable surface. So I only need to place the tip of my half hollow back right here where the spillway is. Okay, start with flat angle and I may need to increase my angle a little bit until I get to the right height. On the buckle side, it is a little bit trickier because we need to use 3 different strokes. It is a longer distance from the spillway to the cable surface, and in order to maintain the curvature of the marginal ridge, we need to using 3 different strokes. As you can see in this module, in steps 1, we need to use a spillway angle to remove excess away from the spillway and shape the marginal ridge. We need to keep the tip of the half hollow back at approximately 80-degree angle in the spillway. We need to move back and forth across the top of the marginal ridge in order to create a small V shape, as you can see in this picture. In the second steps, we need to use the cable surface angle. To remove the excess away from the cable surface, we need to place the instrument at a flat angle. In this case, we're gonna rest the instrument on the enamel surface. And make sure to keep the tip of your half hollow back toward the spillway. In this last picture, as you can see that the previous two steps create a small bump. In order to remove this bump or the remaining excess, we need to place the instrument at an angle somewhere between the previous two angles. In this case, it's about 40-degree angle. In the first picture, the buccal and lingual embrasure are properly contoured, that they follow the natural anatomical curvature of the tooth. If we look at the other two pictures below that, the buccal and lingual embrasure are improperly contoured by leaving too much excess in the embrasure or overcarved in the embrasure. I am going to use an interproximal carver to clear the buccal and lingual embrasure. Following the anatomy of the tooth, place the interproximal carver on the tooth surface with the tip pointing toward the contact. Using a short and light stroke, remove excess of the buccal and lingual embrasure. Be careful not to remove too much from the embrasure because it might open up the contact. Now let's talk about the gingival contour. Picture number 4 demonstrates a proper gingival contour or proximal contour. Picture number 1 shows an overclearing of the gingival contour that produces an inadequate embrasure. At picture number 3, we see that too much excess left in the embrasure that produces a big overhang. I am using an explorer to check for any excess in the gingival embrasure as well as any catches in the gingival floor. An interproximal carver can also be used to clear the gingival embrasure. It is important to place the tip of the instrument below the gingival margin, and using a short light stroke, move the instrument occlusally when removing the excess in the gingival embrasure. Keeping your instrument parallel to the anatomy of the tooth also helps preventing overclearing the gingival embrasure. It is important not to move your instrument too far up to the contact area because you might wipe up the contact area. To remove the excess along the cable surface margin, I will use the big discoid. The big discoid allows me to rest half of it on the tooth and half of it on the prep and able to move it along the cable surface. Using a short back and forth stroke, remove the excess along the cable surface. After we complete the clearing steps, your restoration should look like this. Anatomy should be in correct position, including pit, fossa, triangular ridges, horseshoes, central groove, marginal ridges. Fossas are clear of bulk excess. The occlusal anatomy is not too overcarved or undercarved. Marginal ridges and triangular ridges are approximately the same height. Some height could be left on the marginal ridges. Contact is present. Some roughness or irregularities on the occlusal surface may present and could be removed with the clear during the carving steps. The rule of thumb is after complete the clearing steps, the restoration should be considered clinically functional. It means that the patient could walk out of your office with this restoration.